back live again, and I'll hand over to the Democracy Manager to make a ruling on whether myself as the mover and the seconder are in a position to change their motion this late in the piece.
Thank you, Mayor Andrew. The Chair has sought advice from me regarding the validity of amending the motion partway through debate. Understanding orders provision 23.12, a motion or amendment may be altered with the consent of the mover and the seconder of the motion, provided that it has not been put to the floor for vote, which is the case here. So, given that Councillor Bunting and Mayor Andrew, if they are happy to make the alteration, and I gather they do, and this is the change wording on the screen in front of you, it's completely appropriate.
Can I speak to explain it? So the key aspects here is that we've made it clear it's for feral and abandoned cats, that it's for operational costs, and there was a concern that this would mean that individuals that find a feral cat would come in and deliver like cat by cat by cat, which would be an administrative nightmare for staff. So what we've included is delivering an organised program, and we've chosen at least 100 cats. We think it's about 1,000 cats per year. That gives suitably small enough so organised groups can bring it forward, but it also doesn't make it so small that it's administratively burdensome for staff and therefore require additional operating costs. Ferals there? Wild?
Just abandoned.
Yeah.
So take the word feral in it.
Okay.
Okay, we're just going to remove the word feral because feral cats are supposed to be put down. So, so it's abandoned cats only. Councillor Ryan, sorry.
Questioning, and then I'll take it's your motion, but whether 100 cats is setting the bar too high. I mean, anyone that can organise even 20 cats is going to be fairly much a club that does it. I just don't. Are you eliminating people if they don't have 100 cats? Is that too high a threshold?
Because they're going to store the cats until they get to 100.
It's an annual grant. They will basically prove to us they can do 100 cats over a year at least. So it should be say per annum. They will store the cats in the freezer.
Now. So can we add per annum in there? Well, does that satisfy you, Councillor?
Well, that's what it's got that per year. I just
got a year.
Of all the groups, and Andy's not here, I guess, but is that too high a threshold? 100 cats.
How many have you got at home?
Cat man.
The groups that I'm aware of are larger than that, and we're talking high hundreds into the thousands.
So you don't see that being prohibitive?
The organisations that aren't charitable trusts, I'm not too sure what the size of capacity is.
I just think if you can bring 10 cats, that's a lot of cats.
So,
100 cats.
So we're going to do an annual grant round, is the way I understand how this is going to work. So it'll be about organisations that believe they have the capacity to deliver. We will provide funding for them to do so, and we'll hold them to account to deliver that number of cats. So it'll only be those applicants that can come forward that have the confidence that they have a program that will at least pick up 100 cats. So it's not retrospective. It's in advance, not retrospective of collecting the cats, Councillor Mallett. So they don't have to hold them in stock and feed them until such time as they get 100 together.
So does it mean effectively that it would be offered to only one provider? Because one of the questions I asked earlier on this meeting was whether or not 100,000 would be shared amongst a number of providers who could meet the then requirements.
I think Andy just referred to there are a number of providers out there that can already hit at least 100 cats per annum. So there will be multiple people applying for the grant as part of this.
Yeah, but would the grant be only offered to one of those multiple applicants?
No.
Or could it be offered to more than one?
The way this is wording, it's to multiple. Well, either or, I suppose. But it's the best. The people will put their best foot forward. Sorry, Mr. Mayor, in the middle of the debate still, I suppose, aren't we?
If you took away at least 100 cats, you've still got delivered an organised program. I just don't want you to get chewed up in, a numbers, quantity. An organised program, you'd argue would be a robust enough process anyway. That's all.
We'll suggest that there is wriggle room in organised program. The organised program is defined enough. 100 cats is even more defined.
Too defined, I argue.
I guess that staff are trying not to be handling 100 applications when the big organisations are doing it, when we know there's 5 of them out there doing it.
Said my bit, rest my case.
Anything you want to add?
Yes, thank you, Andrew. I mean, this whole discussion's kind of a little bit innovative, so I'll chip in, whilst I normally would not. I'm very conscious that it's important for you as elected members to make a safe decision based on information. I think the specificity that's been included in the wording around the scale is important to ensure that staff understand and can execute the decision that you make today with confidence. That would be my
Okay, so anyone to speak who hasn't spoken so far? Actually, I'm just to be fair, I'm going to open this up again. Sorry, Councillor Mark, but it is a very changed. Yes.
Just take questions, don't open up the debate.
Yes.
Southgate, not cake, McPherson.
We're not on that one, Gary.
Oh, is that nothing to do with
No,
this?
no.
Okay, sorry, I thought that was the 100,000 that was funded.
My question relates to the other one.
Okay,
with
just
with
wait.
both motions. I just want to ask,
Is this the Paula one? Which one are you asking about?
well, because it relates to really both, what I want to ask, and I would like to ask Councillor Southgate, with her motion, will like all these, what you said, setting out the motion there with the HCC, could that come into, and I'm asking through the chair, Councillor Southgate.
Well, just
could
ask the chair.
yeah, could that come into the motion for what Councillor Southgate put up? That this can be included, because as far as I've heard that it will be, you will check or set up new criteria in the coming year for the contestable fund. So could that be part of the criteria for the contestable fund that she's asking for another $100,000 for?
I'm not sure I fully understand, but Andy runs the contestable funds, and this $100,000 is a separate fund purely for cat desexing, standalone, separate to everything else. That's what we're debating.
Okay, so okay.
So it's not related to Paula's 100,000 at all.
Okay.
It's a standalone contestable fund. Happy with that, Andy? Does that answer your question?
Sort of, not really, but yeah.
Is there anything more that I can clarify?
No, I understand it's separate, but I just wonder whether they could be put into, well,
That's not the way the motions read.
yeah, no, that's okay.
Okay, any more questions before we continue with debate? Okay. I haven't spoken. Okay, so I'll just continue with debate. I haven't spoken yet. I'm coming back to right of reply after I've spoken. So we're in debate.
No, we can't.
We're well through debate. Everyone's pretty well spoken, and I haven't spoken, so I'm just speaking, and then you'll get a right of reply. So, Councillor Robb, you haven't spoken, so go ahead. Yep.
Look, I don't believe we have all of the detail on this, and I think as this motion has developed, what has ended up being specified in the detail on the motion has really been developed on the hoof. I'm worried, and I think I ally the concerns of our democracy manager that we need to be careful and safe in some of these decisions that we are making. Already we've identified the potential for more administration costs, and I raised this in the questions this morning, that and got the answer that most of the administration would be covered in existing costs. But as time has progressed, I think there will be additional admin costs which we haven't really taken into account. So I'm really again going to suggest, and I've already done this without success, that this matter be deferred until next year's annual plan. That will give staff and council enough time to really develop something which is more concrete, which may have involved discussion with other operators in the market, apart from the people Pause for Life, and that will also give council an ability to make sure that we have all of the costs that this particular venture is going to cost council. It will also give an opportunity for it to be considered as to where it fits in with our current discretionary single-year grants, so that we can perhaps present this in a somewhat more concerted way, rather than in the one-off single consideration of something that we are already currently funding with other groups around the city. Thank you.
So can I ask the Democracy Manager to clarify whether you just asked for a procedural motion? Because it appeared to me you did. Is that where you want to go?
Yeah, my advice is it's a question for the councillor, Mayor Andrew.
Not procedural motion that this be I haven't written anything down, but that this be deferred and considered as an annual plan, as a potential annual plan topic for 2021.
Is there a seconder? Okay, we have a seconder. No one's allowed to speak. Is everyone sorry? You can't speak. It's a procedural motion. No, it's been seconded. So we'll just get it. We'll get the motion on the board. Excuse me. No speaking, please. The rules are very clear. Gary, the rules are very clear. Once a procedural motion's been put, there's no speaking. No laughing. Very good. Point of order? Yes. I'll ask the Democracy Manager that. You can put that to the Democracy Manager.
Sorry to my good friend, Councillor Pascoe, but the standing orders, if I'm right, state that you can't put a procedural motion if you have debated. I was actually just reading it.
What's the result of my debate?
Wouldn't even allow a debate. Any? Page 43, 25.2. Sorry, I'd only just turned the page.
Okay, are there any...
Absolutely. I defer to the reading skills of Councillor O'Leary.
Yes. Okay, so we're moving on with... We're moving back to the motion that's been put by Bunting King. Gary. So I want to refer back to something that Councillor Gary said. I'm pretty sure it was Councillor Gary who said it, and he said this is not our responsibility. And I agree that this is not our responsibility, but this is exactly why we're here as elected members, to pick up things and holes and things that we can see don't fulfil the needs of the proper running of our city. And this is a... Okay, sorry. We'll go back to,
I do apologise. Actually, the procedural motion was in order because councillor Pascoe was speaking. That was his term. He had not spoken previously in debate. He was exercising the procedural motion. He suggested it as part of his debate. He had not already spoken. So the procedural motion is live. Apologies.
okay. So we're going, excuse me, we're going to the board to vote on the procedural motion. Can we have the procedural motion back on the board, please? So just to be clear, we're voting on a procedural motion that's on the board.
The procedural motion is lost. 4 for, 8 against.
Okay, so now we're continuing with my debate. Councillor Gary, sometimes things aren't our responsibility, and as elected members, that's why we're elected members. That's why we step in. What's your point of order, Councillor Gary?
Figure out who's, I didn't say it wasn't our job. I said we had to make sure, because I suggested it could possibly be the regional council.
Okay, I'll accept your point of order.
Thank you.
That Councillor Gary said that we should find out whose responsibility it is to be doing this. And there is, I don't believe that there will be anybody who has picked this up or is picking this up. And it is a problem in our city, and it's something that we can help with. Secondly, I just want to give credit to where this has got today, to our man with a big heart and a soft heart for animals, Councillor Mark Bunting, who originally brought the cat's paws for life into my office, and I reluctantly agreed to meet with them. And as they spoke, I realised that there really was something there that was worth taking to staff, to get staff to look at, to see whether there was a way forward here somehow. And the initiative of this contestable fund actually came from staff, but it was elected members who needed to pick this up and put it up. So thank you, Mark, for your big soft hearts for animal welfare, which I have seen several times now. Right of reply, Councillor Mark Bunting.
Thank you, Mayor Andrew. Right, so there's just a couple of things which this reasonably complicated process has got us to. We have, I believe, answered the question that was raised by Councillors McPherson and Mallett regards the charitable organisations. I think the motion does change that. I would take issue with a couple of points raised by Councillor Henry. In particular, with regards to it being merged up with the community grants, I still maintain that it's a very separate issue. Rather than just straight people welfare, this is a biodiversity issue and should be treated as such. I mean, for heaven's sakes, we changed the name of an entire committee to bring in the environment angle on this, and this is firmly and squarely where this sits. So it is a very specialised area. I agree with Councillor McPherson's earlier point in an earlier debate that this is actually something the regional council should be looking at. And I think this should serve as warning to them that we will be leaning on them for some help in this. So eventually we don't have to do this. I would urge this to go through because I know the tenuous state that financially that as we've seen, the SPCA can find themselves in, Paws for Life are in, and some of these organisations who are doing this work. They're only coming to us because they need our help. They're not doing it for their jollies. I think today they have really impressed upon us too that this is a citywide issue. It's not just an issue of nice fluffy cats and people being nice to animals. It's a real citywide biodiversity issue. So I would urge members to have a crack at this. And Councillor Ryan, you're right, 100 cats is a number plucked out of the air, but it's a number and it can be altered if we find down the track that there are organisations missing out because of that threshold. So I'd urge members to get this one through, please.
Okay, we'll go to the board to vote.
Don't start with me. Oh. might just, yeah.
The motion is carried, 7-4, 5 against.
Okay, we're now moving to councillor Paula's motion, which has been seconded by councillor Dave. Can we go straight to debate on this one? Or do you want questions? We'll go to questions. Yes, okay.
Technical one of staff, and I've alerted them to it in advance, so I hope they've got the answer.
Can we have the motion up on the board?
I understand that our policy, or the previous decision said that, and it's probably to Sean, said that we should increase the fund by 10% a year. And we were told earlier that the fund next year was 310,000, or in the coming year, versus 300,000 the previous year. Now, 10% of 300,000 is 30,000. So can we have a clarification, please? And if not, why not?
Thank you, Councillor McPherson. So in the 10-year plan, Council resolved to increase the Community Assistance Fund by 10% in year 1 of the 10-year plan, and every year thereafter by annual inflation adjustment. So that was for the total Community Assistance Fund, which from memory is about $1.something million. The single year grants is the 310 figure, which is a portion of that we're talking about. So the extra 100 is for single year grant, I think, which is on top of the 310. So they're the relevant
So what
numbers.
was it the previous year? If it's 310 now, I understand your current reasoning, but what was the base?
Andy might have that number.
I'm just trying to check whether we're on the right figure. New base is right.
Councillor, sorry, the 10% was added to our 1.16.
No, that's it. No, what was the small grants fund? I should have been clearer.
So in the policy pre the addition of this year's 10%, was at least 260, because we've got our multi-year grant, which accounts for 918,000 of that 1.276.
So we've added about 50,000 to that figure to get to the 310. Is that in 1 year?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, no, that's fine. Thanks. Yep.
Okay, we're on questions. Councillor Paula.
No, I've got no questions, thank you.
Are there any more questions before we go to debate? Okay, councillor Paula.
Thank you, Mayor Andrew. I didn't bring this up today to be disruptive to the process. The highlighting of the previous motion with some support for desexing cats just alerted me to the opportunity that I probably should have taken a little bit earlier, to be fair, to increase the quantum of the Community Grants Fund. I have spoken strongly about this on a number of occasions. It's uncomfortable for the independent assessors for that fund when each year they're over 300%, they're 300% oversubscribed. So many community groups and organisations, all of which are charitable, all are strengthening our community, get turned away in that. I thought it was a bit of a big win when I managed to get it inflation-proofed, and I was like, yay, victory. But I see now that there would be an imbalance if 100,000 goes to animal welfare alone and the rest of the fund does not get a corresponding increase to help them, because I think out of fairness, all of those charities do good work and we have to support them. So this is just one sum in 1 year to give that a boost, and I just remind councillors that in previous terms the money was reduced in this fund, and at one stage we weren't even inflation proofing the fund, so in real terms it was going backwards at a time when the need in the community for support is getting more and more. So I don't think I need to say anything more on it than that. I do just feel quite strongly that we should get in behind our community groups in this way.
To add to what Paul has said, which I agree with, in fact, it wasn't just for some years. For no years has it been inflation-proofed in my experience on council. There have been one or two small changes, but they've been one-offs. Many other areas of council expenditure, because they're expenditure on our own facilities, services or resources, have been inflation-proofed, but we haven't inflation-proofed the community in a time when our population, during the time, 20 years, our population has grown by about 70%, I might add. So I think it's way beyond time that we got it to a more realistic level. When we got the figures last year for the grants per head of population given in this area in Hamilton versus other cities, I don't know, I think we were the lowest of the larger cities in New Zealand, and certainly way lower. I remember Dunedin, way lower than Dunedin, lower even than Tauranga, which does not have a good reputation as being a community-minded city, I might add, and we were lower than them. Community groups that apply for this fund basically are getting rats and mice out of it. The highest grant, I believe, was 8,000 in the round we've just had. These are groups that in many cases are doing work for the city, on behalf of the city, that if they weren't doing, the city council would be under a lot of pressure to pick up itself. And I use as an example, we used to run a community centre called the Enderley Community Centre over in the east. That cost us, the last time I checked the figures a few years ago, was $300,000 a year to run a community centre, a smaller one than the Western Community Centre, who's able to apply to this fund, who we gave about $80,000 a year at the same time, or the Puketi Neighbourhood House, who we gave about $40,000 a year. So you can see the value for money you get out of putting something into those community organisations, those independent, those small NGOs around the place, is considerable. And it's not like we're giving out huge largesse. We're not giving salaries. We're simply helping them with their admin and project costs. But we've been falling way behind in that area. For those who say, well, that's not really the city's job, we've all heard the discussion about pokey money, about government withdrawing recreation funds in the past, about the reductions in other government income into the area. So I think it's it's something that we shouldn't have to be doing, because those services in many cases shouldn't be needed, but the fact is they are needed, and the amounts that we're going to get out of 100,000 extra, I think, is considerably more than we will get out of the 230,000 we put into the community policing. That got passed, and that's fine, but think about the benefit you can get by supporting 80 or 90 different groups doing all that work area. And the last thing I'll say is that I know of at least 2 groups in the last round that got told they weren't eligible to apply for funding. We had one of them here today, Pause for Life, for technical reasons, for silly technical reasons, where we all thought, yes, they should have got some funding. Technical reasons ruled them out. When we have tight fund that's too small, that's what ends up happening.
Councillor Paula, can we just ask in debate, you made it quite clear that it was only a one-off $100,000, and
my debate, I originally thought that, but that just means that relative to the other amount, it goes backwards over time. So this can be revisited, but it is per annum.
So you're asking for $1 million over 10 years? You're asking 9 years to go, 900,000.
Well, I don't think it will ever get there.
You're asking for $100,000 per annum going forward.
That's what the cat one is
Councillor
doing.
Paula, I just want to be really sure. You said in your speech,
yes, I did,
a one-off 100,000.
And I've just
but what you're actually asking for is $100,000 per annum going forward.
I've just been discussing with staff what was the best outcome, and yes, I did say 1 year, but I didn't. That was an error. We originally thought about 1 year, and then because
Paula, Councillor Paula, we're in the middle of debate. I just want to know yes or no. Is it a one-off 100,000 or is it 100,000 per year?
It's just so staff
excuse
can
me,
do
everybody,
that.
be quiet, please. Councillor Paula, you're intending for 100,000 per year going forward.
I was trying to explain, but I got cut off halfway through. What I was trying to say is, originally I thought it would be one, but then we are doing a per annum one for the cat de-sexing, so it seems that to put it on a
Councillor
level
Paul, I
path
don't need a
that-
justification. I need to know, is it 100,000 per annum?
As it
Thank
says.
you. Okay, I'm just clarifying because of what you said in your speech.
I give up
Okay,
as it
thank you.
says.
Councillor Gary.
Thank you. And yeah, so I won't be supporting this. Firstly, because this is money that is arbitrarily taken from ratepayers. If ratepayers want to support charities or their local club or their local community hall or something, they should be able to should feel very welcome to go and join that community or that footy club or that bowling club or whatever it is, or to make a donation. We are doing this we are taking money off them that they have not chosen to spend themselves. And secondly, this is just and we'll get this more often now, if we pursue the reduction in pokies, that is a source of funding for community groups. If we pursue the reduction in pokies, that funding will drop, and hopefully we all know that is a huge source of funding for community groups. You can argue the ethics of gambling, and I won't do that now, but at least when it comes through pokies that we regulate and that have huge, strong anti-mitigation policies, it's a lot safer than what will happen if we eliminate regulated pokies. So I won't be supporting this. Thank you.
Councillor Angela.
Thank you, Mayor Andrew. Look, I support the sentiment around this proposal and agree with the comments that we haven't inflation adjusted for some time our community funds, but I have a wider issue with this. Two points I want to make. I think that this and the CAT fund were 10-year plan things. The annual plan is supposed to be there to make adjustments to that year for the LTP, not to put in things, big items. And let's face it, this is, along with the CAT one, we're adding nearly $2 million to our long-term plan.
Point of order, Mr Chair. We debated,
Hang on.
You yourself said before, simply this one, not the CAT one. We should not be bringing in a previous decision.
I'm comfortable for you to continue, Councillor Angela.
Thank you.
Can we then, point of order, argue consistency should be addressed?
I'm very comfortable with the direction that Councillor Angela is heading in.
I'm not.
Continue, Councillor Angela.
Thanks, Mayor Andrew. What I've heard in some of the debate is that on this fund, and I'll keep my points to this fund then to make Councillor McPherson happy, is that there are applications being turned down through the quantum of funding available, through technical things, through challenges whether organisations are charitable or not. Certainly, since we've had this single year community grant available, I've heard directly from the community, from different sectors of the community that all apply to this one bucket fund, that they're not happy. The arts community is pitched against health services are pitched against community neighbourhood services. So for me, there's a wider issue there that I think should be addressed in the next LTP or when this policy comes up. So I'm not sure, given the couple of years we've had all of this, all of those separate grants that we had for events and that we had for services or community groups lumped together, I don't think pitching them against each other is working, and I want to see a bigger conversation. So at this point, I won't be supporting the motion.
Councillor Ryan.
Just really a point of clarity there, talking to Gary, that could be interpreted that it'll increase 100,000 year on year on year. So it'll go from 400,000 to 500,000. It could be interpreted that way.
We can change it if the mover and seconder agree, but to me, if anybody came back and listened to the debate and the questions, they would clearly know very clearly what the spirit of the motion was trying to do.
It's the same as the CAT one, is it not? The same issue.
I'm not sure, but if unless the mover and seconder want to make the change,
He
then...
ruled it out.
Okay, Councillor Mark. Was that the end of your debate? is that a point of clarification and you're still holding your right to debate? Councillor Mark.
Thank you. I wasn't going to speak about this, but the idea to yet again have a debate about the veracity of community grants with Gary has reared its head, so I'll take this opportunity. We seem to have been doing this, my old friend, for years now. So I guess we've both been consistent on this. I applaud Councillor Paula for squeezing this as hard as she can, because we all know that there's never enough money to please everybody. I think our statistics in the last, it was the last meeting where we saw the single year grants come around were shameful compared to other councils, and how much they're putting into their community grant scheme or their one-off single year grant scheme. I remember a while ago hearing Councillor O'Leary on Free FM talking about how councils pay for, and forgive me if I'm paraphrasing you, Angela, wrongly, but councils pay for stuff that the private sector wouldn't. Is that roughly right? For the community? Yeah. And I think this firmly fits into that. Yep, it's in an ideal world, or should I say in a perfect world, we wouldn't necessarily be feline that way, but it isn't a perfect world. So we do, no, just fling off my brilliant head. So we do need to do this. We do need to do this. So I think this does rectify the balance, and I'll be glad to support it.
Okay, we'll go to right of reply, Councillor Paula.
Just one thing, that I absolutely support the comments of Councillor O'Leary in terms of the criteria. I said that at the very beginning, that we need to address the criteria of this fund to make sure that we're covering all sectors of the community in an equitable way, which I'm really keen to do as soon as possible.
Okay, we'll go to the board to vote.
The motion is carried, 7-4, 5 against.
Okay, so I understand. Yes.
Now that we've gone through all the list of proposals, etc., if we can just have 3 or 4 minutes so that we can update the financial strategy numbers in the resolution. So can I, K and L, it'll just take 3 or 4 minutes.
Yeah, so
numbers.
councillors, we're nearly done here. Can we, there's nothing contentious coming up now. It's just a matter of voting through the amended figures. Can we all have 5 minutes, grab a cup of tea, or would you rather have lunch? Okay, so we'll be back at 2:10.